Just looking through this, they have what's known as the president is a title by many heads of state, yes, leaders of national governments. Now, the term is often also used to refer a head of a corporation, a college, an institution, a social club, or other national organization. The article deals with the presidents as national leaders. Now, I'm having some difficulty over here being able to speak to my sons. Yes. And some of these presidents, yes, of different nations. Oh, look at George W. Bush. I wonder what he's doing. Yes. I know that his parents passed away and Laura and himself. You remember that little war we had in Iraq where you were sitting there reading a book do you remember the Middle East War? Now somebody's playing the same stupid game of, well, let's just cause a war. Yes. Something they've been doing since the prehistoric times. Yes. And then there's Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. She ran for president. And then there's Barack Hussein Obama and President Donald Trump. Yes. Now you decided they were going to get the West Bank. Yes. And we were going to move the embassy. Pooh. And I decided, no, that's not really a good idea. Now, for every president of the United States that had sworn, yes, does President Donald Trump, know about his oath of office? Yes. See, when you show up in the news a couple days before an election, you say, well, you can have the West Bank. I guess Palestine's going the way of the prehistoric man. Yeah. We're going to move the embassies around so as to position ourselves for war. Poop. I would. Oh, it's not a good idea. Now, President Donald Trump. My sons are not living with me because nobody in the White House wants to enforce the Constitution. Barack Hussein Obama, while president, didn't enforce the Constitution. Yes. George W. Bush, when he was president, did or did not have any knowledge of Paul Budnick or the United States Treasury and the Treasury, that was used to support war. Now, it cost approximately $1 trillion to go to war in Iraq. I mean, if we added up from September 1st of 2000, September 11th of 2001, yes, until we withdrew the troops from Iraq approximately 12 years later, yeah, a lot of these international conflicts actually take longer than you thought. Now, I remember when the World Trade Center fell, yes, and the attack on the Pentagon, yes, he does. And I remember when terrorists attacked the United States of America. hmm And then in 2003, we're off to Iraq to fight this big war against Saddam Hussein. Yes. And then it was the shock and awe and mission completed within about 3 to 6 months. But as I remember it, once we moved all the troops, we were there for over a decade. Oh. Now, when you add in the $1 trillion for the Iraqi conflict, yes, and $1 trillion for Homeland Security, yes, because of the Patriot Act, because of terrorism, yes, we spent X number of trillions of dollars over the last, 15 years, yes, having to fight wars. Now, as much as we don't want to second guess ourselves, yes, let's say I spent $1 trillion on the United States. Poop. We didn't move the embassy. Right. Israel decided they didn't need the West Bank. Yes. And they went back to the original understanding of 1948. And then all the Israelis decided we are comfortable with the amount of land for 7 million people. Now, I know a lot of Jewish individuals dislike this thought. Yes. But we have spent trillions of dollars fighting wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Yes. Starting Homeland Security, the 72 fusion centers. Yes. Border Patrol. Yes. Walls. Yes. And for some reason, all the money of the United States keeps getting spent. Now, I know you're a general, you're an admiral. You're like, well, what am I going to do? Well, what if we didn't position ourselves for war? Phew. What if we didn't show up 2 days before the election so that somebody could broker the deal? Now, I could look at the actual amount of money spent during the last 18 years from September 11th of 2001 until today on the United States military. Phew. And then I could look at the amount of money that was spent September, what was in March of 2003 that we started Homeland Security? Yes. The total amount of money that we spent fighting terrorism. Oh. Now, as an American citizen, I'm kind of thinking that somebody doesn't really believe that I have some say about how we spend the taxation of the population. And not that I'd want to butt my way in, poop. But I'm thinking somebody's an idiot right now. Now, who's the big Homo erectus? Yes, that decided we're going to spend another decade or two fighting a war. Homo erectus. Listen, caveman, pouch. You've been stripping this nation of everything of value so that you can fight wars and you can start departments of the United States federal fucking government. Right? Now, I think, yes, that we should step away from whatever plans the White House has made. Yes. And we should reevaluate the use of the taxation of the nation to build the United States. Now, I've given you a lot of good ideas about this. Yes. hmm 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 Now, well, let's say you wasted the last 20 years of actual disposable income to this nation. Yeah. And you issued X number of trillions of dollars of debt, yes, as future obligations of the United States of America. And your whole want is, as long as I'm in power, it really doesn't matter. Ooch, I have to get elected so that I can decide. Now, as Commander in Chief of the United States of America, did you take into consideration exactly where the location of the United States of America? Now, you know that word, treason. Now, I actually am in a position to put the president in prison. And not just one of them. Oh, well, what about President Barack Hussein Obama? What about President George W. Bush? Pooch. What about President William Clinton? What about President Jimmy Carter? Now, for every one of you, yes, that have been in the White House, I have no problem suing you for the Treasonous Act right now. Now, what Homo erectus doesn't understand, I have some say in what this nation spends its money on. Now, I talked about a little rebuilding of your good old boy network of world leaders that decided, well, I have to be in power, I have to get reelected, and I have to cause a war so that the United States of America will know that you're the commander in chief of the United States and they will follow the orders of the president. Now, I did look at the oath of office. There might be a copy of it here. You know, obligating the having to follow orders because of the actual commander in chief. Yes. We should not use the provisions of the commander in chief. Yes. Unless there is a verifiable threat to the United States of America. We don't just move the embassy, let somebody pick a fight with Iran. Yes. And then all of a sudden, George W. Bush shows up. We don't do that right now. Isn't that right? You've been really fucking up the world, haven't you? Yes. See, it says right here, the highlight occurs when the new president takes an oath of office from the Chief Justice of the United States. With right hand raised and left hand on an open Bible, the new president says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of why the Constitution is not being preserved. Yes. Why it is not being protected. Yes. And why it's not being defended. Pooch. And for every president right now, I will absolutely imprison you. I mean, put you in the prison for the treason. So for every Homo erectus in the White House, I want you to stop making little deals on the side that affect the Treasury of the United States of America. We're not going to do what you said. Now, look at here, presidential succession. Oh, Vice President Pence. Poop. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. Oh, President pro tempore of the Senate. Secretary of State. Excuse me, Kentucky Pompeo. Pooch. I'm gonna put you in motherfucking prison. Now, why don't we sit back and reevaluate what these secretaries do? Yes. And then we're going to reevaluate our involvement in Israel today, aren't we?